Broadcasting live from our studio in Boston, Solutions Review is proud to showcase Nexthink in the Solution Spotlight, an inside look at enterprise technologies.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to the Solution Spotlight featuring Nexthink, and focused on harnessing the power of AI to optimize digital employee experience, or DEX. With rapid developments in artificial intelligence, it's logical for IT teams to be on the lookout for AI technology that can help drive the optimal digital employee experience. So today, we will shine our spotlight on how Nexthink uses AI to help organizations make the shift from reactive to proactive to preventative IT management, resulting in continued improvement in digital employee experience and productivity. First will be a presentation on how Nexthink customers are leveraging AI today to make informed decisions for their companies. And then there'll be a demonstration on the benefits of IT management through Nexthink Assist, an AI-powered virtual assistant for DEX. And to walk you through the Nexthink presentation is Matt Rose, Senior Product Marketing Manager, and David Reese, Senior Solution Consultant. Matt, David, thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Well, it's been a while since we talked, but it's great to see you again. We've been tracking Nexthink here at Solutions Review for a while now, and it's always interesting to have you on the spotlight because you're always bringing something interesting to the party. And I think what we have all been wondering as AI landed on us all a year and a half or so ago is, how is it going to begin to, where's the rubber going to meet the road for the digital experience for employees on the front lines, and really, how are you going to bring the innovation that's available right now? And so I'm gonna get out of the way, but I'm gonna be taking notes because I know there's a lot of questions that I'm gonna have. But I want to set everybody's expectations around questions. So if anybody has any questions in this event, by all means, send them in. I'll gather them all up here and I'll save them. And we'll let the presentation spool out, and then I'll jump back in probably 45 minutes from now, and we'll have a nice Q&A session. So Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then I know you're going to turn it over to David, but we'll catch up to you in like I said, about quarter of.
Perfect. Doug, thank you very much. Great to be here. As Doug was saying, today's really all about how we're leveraging artificial intelligence at Nexthink to help our customers really optimize their digital employee experience. And it's really kind of hard to believe that just a year ago we were talking about, DEX progressing, and now all of a sudden we're talking about AI-powered DEX, but it's really kind of grown exponentially over the past year or so. Now, I do want to give a very quick level set kind of as to where we stand, just as some basic background. Promise you this will be very quick. And frankly, this whole kind of slideware section is probably only going to be somewhere around 10 minutes because we want to get you right into the action and what you're really here to see, which is the product in action and solving problems, and how they can help your organization potentially moving forward. So with that, I think kind of super quick background on the DEX side of things, right? Growing complexity for IT management with employees working from anywhere, various networks and infrastructures, countless applications and operating systems and multiple different clouds that are all under kind of one roof, in one company, in one environment, that need to really have kind of visibility over them so you know exactly what's going on. And while this is a pretty picture, before DEX, this was really hard to do because there was limited visibility with typical monitoring tools, right? You've got disjointed views of what's happening, frankly, because there are multiple different tools at play. And then you're kind of reliant fully on employees to report incidents. And really what we know and have discovered at Nexthink and talking to many different customers is that really only somewhere around 50% of those employee tickets or problems are actually logged through a ticket. And so with that came DEX, and the fact that there was a real need to shift from reactive to proactive because there were inefficiencies in cost and time and money, in that if a service ticket comes in, it's actually what we've found as actually 5 times slower in terms of speed to resolution from end to end than what it could be if a system like a digital employee experience platform such as Nexthink was actually automatically, proactively overlooking an entire environment and ultimately detecting those issues and notifying IT teams so that they can be fixed, not only for one individual employee, but also scaled out. And that's kind of where that whole shift from reactive and service desk reliance to proactive comes into play. Now, as I've mentioned at the top, there's been a lot of continued push in the digital employee experience space, so much so that Gartner has said that by 2025, 50% of IT organizations are going to have a digital employee experience strategy team and be leveraging it as they work to implement different strategies in optimizing their business moving forward. And that's kind of the real reason behind digital employee experience, is that these platforms are delivering business outcomes. So things like tactical troubleshooting and getting ahead of apps crashing, network connections, and device slowdowns, in addition to doing more from a strategic initiative standpoint and helping with hardware lifecycle optimization and SaaS license reclamation and things along those lines, so that ultimately you're achieving organization-wide KPIs such as cost and time savings and sustainability and productivity. And these kind of tactical troubleshooting initiatives and tactical troubleshooting issues and strategic initiatives are all things that improve digital employee experience overall, and where a DEX platform really comes into play. And that's Nexthink, right? We're the world's leading DEX provider, enabling IT teams to be able to see, diagnose, and fix issues across their entire environment, just like that graphic was showing kind of towards the beginning. And we manage over 16 million devices with the home and a home to over 300 of the Fortune 2000 organizations in the world. Now, I went through that quickly because all that to say, how do we move into the future with AI-powered DEX? Well, the Nexthink Infinity platform really has been built from the ground up over the past year and a half or so, and has helped kind of shape that shift from reactive to proactive to now preventative, as Doug was saying at the top. And I think we're probably somewhere in between the proactive and preventative state right now. We're pushing towards a full AI-powered DEX solution, but I think there's a lot to do upcoming in order to fully get there. And there's a lot of AI capabilities that Nexthink has right now, and customers are leveraging across both generative AI and machine learning in order to make that happen. Now, on the generative AI front, the thing that always comes to mind, right, is as a consumer, ChatGPT, and how am I using this every day? Well, natural language processing and the power of generative AI inside Nexthink Assist is really becoming that unified entry point for IT teams to help kind of democratize IT. As somebody who isn't in the Nexthink platform every single day, but and am not, fully robustly trained on some of the different Nexthink query language and how to pull different information, I, leveraging generative AI, can go ahead and ask Nexthink questions in order to get the answers that I need and really onboard quickly. So first thing first, one of the things that Nexthink Assist, which is our generative AI virtual assistant, finds information and drives information generation so that I can quickly ask a question around applications or devices and things along those lines in order to help gather information and troubleshoot. There's also along the lines of content generation and building out dashboards by simply typing in a query to Nexthink Assist, as well as smarter search capabilities, and ultimately in the future, some insight generation pieces like asking, hey, how come a pocket of employees' digital employee experience score has dropped, and what am I going to do about it? Now, we have a full-on kind of see, diagnose, and fix troubleshooting process from end to end. It's a lot on the screen, but it looks something like this. And over time, what you'll be able to see is the leveraging of Nexthink Assist inside every single stage of this. So today, leveraging information generation and content generation pieces, search, and insights in order to be able to walk from end to end and solve a problem right off the bat, understanding, okay, what just happened in my environment, when and what has changed, why did that happen, what do we do about it, and how do we fix it, all through the typing and conversation with a generative AI assistant. On the flip side, one of the other things that we wanted to make sure to kind of showcase and what our customers are really leveraging today is along the lines of the machine learning category underneath the artificial intelligence umbrella in order to help expedite, automate, and prevent troubleshooting from happening through the use of actionable insights. Really kind of enlightening IT teams to be able to remove guesswork and troubleshoot right away. And that includes different pieces of functionality such as clustering, profiling, benchmarking, recommendations, and insights. Now, David's going to dive a lot deeper into each of these components during the demo upcoming here. But in the short term, while these features are excellent, what are the actual benefits as in terms of the digital employee experience overall, and how AI plays a function here? Well, we know that AI is purpose-built for solving complex problems and increasing business efficiency and making smarter decisions and automating business processes. And that's the same across any kind of implementation of artificial intelligence across the business landscape. In terms of what it does for DEX, though, is imagine something like an employee having a hardware issue, and then you being able to leverage Nexthink and artificial intelligence to scan all the devices environment-wide, correlate point-in-time events, and identify clusters and pockets where an issue is happening, and ultimately gather the root cause analysis right away. Or a binary is having some stability issues, and David will kind of go into a full demo here, but you're able to essentially utilize artificial intelligence to remove IT guesswork, where you're uncovering different versions and which one is the most stable, and how do I go ahead and implement a fix without having to go through the whole testing process, because I already know what the answer is going to be. Or making smarter decisions, like an application being slow. Well, you don't know what you don't know. So if that's the case, you can utilize artificial intelligence benchmarking inside of Nexthink to be able to look at the performance of your application versus millions of other users around the world that are under the Nexthink management, to be able to see where there are areas to improve and where are you already performing at an optimum level in order to help not only make smarter decisions, but also increase your business efficiency like we just talked about. And then finally, as we move into the future and talk about preventative pieces, many organizations have mandatory rules around connection to VPN. Well, what happens if you were able to leverage artificial intelligence to essentially be able to build out a no-code workflow and remove this issue altogether? Those are some of the things that both we can do today within Nexthink, those kind of first three buckets that I was just describing, and then things that we're looking towards in the future as we head into not only the latter half of 2024, but beyond. So with that, I'm really excited to pass this over to David so you can really see some of these different artificial intelligence capabilities live and in action. And then I'll be jumping back on afterwards to answer any and all questions. But looking forward to this, and we hope you find this demo to be, as exciting and as valuable as many of our current customers already do.
All right, great. Thanks, Matt. And again, my name is David Reese. I'm a solution consultant at Nexthink. What our customers are often talking about when it comes to AI, and what people are generally gravitating to, is the first thing they're thinking of is things like ChatGPT. They're thinking of generative AI. They're thinking of something that can create things and do some interesting things in here. Nexthink has actually been using AI for a while, but it really starts with our heritage. When you think about what Nexthink is doing, it has been for most of its existence based around a concept of see, diagnose, and fix. We see problems, we diagnose those problems, we fix those problems. And it's a methodology that people have been using forever, and individuals have been using it. Where the challenge and why people have gravitated to Nexthink in the first place was they got to a point where they couldn't just throw bodies at the problem. It became more complex. So they needed the data that Nexthink had to offer to extend their capabilities out. And now what our customers are realizing is that even with that data, it's getting more difficult to process that information, because there's so much information that could process. Let's leverage something that could replicate a lot of that behavior that a very intelligent person could do, but let's do it on a level that a computer is capable of doing. And that's the big draw of what we're looking at with Nexthink. So For instance, when you think about what we're trying to do with our AI, it is very much what a good human would do with this one. So let's say I was interacting with Nexthink right now in a very natural way. Now, you could see this dashboard that I have up in front of me right now that's giving me scores and indicators about different aspects of my performance, like how long does it take for people to log in and what's it like when people are using SAP. As a viewer of this, I need to interpret that data. So I'd need to know something a little bit about that. But let's say I didn't want to do that and I wanted to interact with Nexthink and interact specifically with Nexthink Assist, which is our generative AI tool. As the name implies, it makes generations of different objects. And in a lot of AI tools, things like ChatGPT, that might be images, it could be screenplays, it could be scripts, it could be code, it could be a variety of different things. And where our AI really focuses on is the digital employee experience, what we've been doing for all this time. So we create objects that would be relevant within our own environment. So different investigations and queries, we can create campaigns and different ways of interacting with users. So rather than having to search through the data that I have right now, I could begin to ask Nexthink things about my environment that it might be able to answer for me, such as how many devices have had poor Teams calls in the past 24 hours. And this is a live example of our AI, so it's not pre-programmed in terms of what it does. So the responses may change from time to time. And so you could see in here, I have a list of devices that, that have had poor Teams calls in the past 24 hours. But let's say I wanted to get more specific with this. So let's say I wanted to find out how many devices have poor Teams audio calls in the past 24 hours. And what I'm asking for right now is just to give me the total number of devices that I would expect to see in the situation. So what I might want to be able to get in here, oh, it's giving me the total number of devices in my system. So let me just go and reset this right now and start my query again. So a couple of things about the way that our AI is going to be working. It is working in real time. It's trying to gather information from all the other people that are using Assist and getting information. And I could start by looking at things like, what questions can I ask? And it's going to then give me some idea about some suggestions about what to do in different situations. But I might want to ask other specific questions about my environment and how certain devices might be behaving. So if I wanted to know which devices are consuming more than 40% of CPU, I can enter that information in here right now. And it's going to come back and it's going to retrieve a list of devices in here. Or it might show me something else. It might show me a total number of devices. It's trying to predict what I would want to see based off of the way that I viewed that question. So in this case, I see the devices that are consuming more than 40% of their CPU. And with these users, I might want to take some action right now. So number one, it's helped me identify people that might be struggling with their computer, but I might want to take this a step further where I want to then engage with these people. I want to take some kind of action against this. So I'm going to go and create a campaign. Now, a campaign in Nexthink is asking certain questions that might be relevant in a certain situation. Now, one of the benefits of having Nexthink is that we can ask very targeted questions. So we're not just going to ask you, or rather, we're not going to just hit everybody up with that question about their laptop performance. We might only want to ask that question if they were struggling with their laptop. So that's something else that we could build into the AI. It could understand, number one, what would be a struggling condition? And two, how should we interact with the users? So in this case, we're being proactive. We could reach out to these users with these types of questions. So based off of what I've done right now, a campaign could be a notification that we send to these users, and they would be able to answer these types of questions. So for instance, we might want to ask them, how do you rate the performance of your laptop? So maybe they have this high CPU usage, but they haven't really experienced any problems. So they might say, no, I'm not really experiencing everything. Everything is excellent. But if they do have a problem, we can start to grab information from those users. So now we could take the real user feedback and correlate it with the data in the system. So for instance, we looked at these devices and we're like, well, that's poor performance. But if the users then affirm and say, yes, that's actually a pretty poor performance for me, now Nexthink Assist can understand that and could, in the future, would process the information out that way. Now, we can ask all sorts of different questions in this scenario. But one of the things that we can also do with this is I can provide my feedback to Nexthink Assist, asking or telling it, yes, the responses you've given me have been very relevant. And we can ask it all sorts of different questions for all sorts of different situations. So let's say I also wanted to have a list of devices that didn't reboot in the last 2 weeks. So what you might be interested in is things that might be your call drivers. How many people need to reset their password? How many people are experiencing crashing applications? How many people have poor Teams calls? All these different types of things we could then report back on. So now I've got a list of devices that have not rebooted in 14 days. And the same story, I could then create a campaign telling these users to reboot. And that campaign would then be interactive. So now what they would be looking at here, think about the end user, the person on the device that has not been rebooted in 14 days. Now they're getting an interactive notification. So a lot of people, they're not necessarily rebooting their devices. These are the types of things that are good just for general health and well-being of different situations. So it might make sense that we want to remind people to go and reboot your device. We could remind people to close some of your Chrome tabs. So we could do all sorts of things that we could gather about this. But the value of Nexthink Assist, obviously its natural language is very important, and being able to respond to these queries and create objects such as campaigns or investigations, which we could then use to trigger a workflow. There are a lot of things that we can do within this, but what's underpinning this AI? And what makes Nexthink Assist so significant is it's built on a platform with a great history around artificial intelligence and around data computation. So coming back to other forms of AI that we might use at Nexthink besides just besides generative AI, one of the things that Matt had mentioned was clustering. And you could see, if you've probably looking at this, you've probably noticed a little bit of clustering that we're doing here on this screen, where we're breaking devices down or employees into the type of experience that they have, whether they're having a good, average, or frustrating experience. And this is based off of an algorithm. So it's not using machine learning for this component of it, although that's something that our AI engine is learning. It's learning how to cluster, and it's basing it off of our experience. So we're feeding it with our historical understanding of AI and our historical understanding of DEX to make it stronger. So when our AI comes into play, it's making more informed decisions. And you probably have noticed from time to time, sometimes AI, when it generates images or generates objects, they're not quite what you might expect them to be. And so we want to make sure that we're using a combination of that expertise and the AI's power to really make better suggestions about what people should be doing when it comes to enhancing and improving their employee experience. So by dividing them up this way and breaking them out into different experience, it allows me to focus, for instance, on the users with the most frustrating experience. And the algorithm we have is based off of the components that we see below in here. Like, how is the device performing? What is the logon speed? What is the network quality? And Nexthink can then aggregate that information from our different customers to get an understanding of what login speed should be. What does good look like? That's probably one of the biggest challenges when it comes to identifying problems, is not even knowing what are the indicators of it. And that's where, when we talk about AI and it's processing all of that data that it's coming in there, it's able to start to understand, well, people who have these conditions are having a poor experience. We can base that off the sentiment. We can also base it off of previously built models that Nexthink has created. So we're using this model about digital employee experience to understand what a frustrating experience is. And then I could see the different pieces that are part of it. For instance, SAP is one of the applications that's giving people problems. And we could see how we've trended downward in terms of what the experience is. And if I wanted to drill into that, we could get more data about what this looks like. So still here, we're talking about raw data being presented and visualized right now, but it's based off of our model that we've built to be able to evaluate this information. But what we're doing then is we're pointing AI at our model of data to make it make decisions. And because the model is strong, the AI is going to be stronger as well. So if you notice what I can do here, when I'm looking at this application, we know that this has been causing some problems for my users. So if I click on this icon here, which is to troubleshoot the application slowness, this is where we get those insights to help us understand what are the possibilities that are happening on all my devices to tell me what the problems are without me having to tell the system what to look for. So remember with Nexthink Assist, I was asking it questions about which users were having 40% of CPU and which users had poor Teams calls and which devices didn't reboot. What I'm also showing right now is that the cause for those high page load times, it's making recommendations and it's telling me that all of my users in Massachusetts, they have the highest slowest ratio of everybody else. So Nexthink's AI is now coming out and it's looking at the different factors and it's clustering devices together and saying, based off of this cluster that we built just based off of geolocation, we can see that they have a high amount of issues. So imagine what we can do once we start to expand that into all sorts of different clustering options, like not just the geolocation, but maybe users that use a CAD application or users that are developers and therefore use a lot of CPU intensive applications. We can start the profile and saying, hey, we're noticing problems with this cluster of users. That's pretty much what we're doing here. We're identifying users into different clusters and saying, are any of them standing out right now? And we're able to do that here and identify that my users in Massachusetts are experiencing other issues. Another example of how we can make those recommendations is based off of the specific page that they might be visiting. So when they visit SAP, if you think about how a web page, a web application usually works, is multiple pages. Like you went to nexthink.com, for instance, we have multiple pages that you can navigate to. Some of them might take longer than others. And that's another thing that we can identify is the users visiting specific pages or specific applications. What's their experience like? So we're making recommendations on that front. And then what I could do is I can accept those recommendations. So let's say I'm going to apply a filter now. Nexthink will reevaluate the situation now just for those users of this application, the dispatch shipment part of SAP, and it's going to make new evaluations. So before it was just looking at geolocation and the page, but now that I've isolated the cause, it's now telling me that the adapter that people are using is also a likely cause of this problem. So I could see a number of people in here are using Wi-Fi and their page load time is much higher than everybody else. Of course, Nexthink had always had the ability to create these queries on your own and to set up alerts, but now we can have AI be proactive and send these results out to you so that we can identify those problems without having to go and tell Nexthink to do an evaluation or to walk through it. And we're doing this because we know what good engineers have done in the past. And we know what DEX has meant. We've been able to teach our AI very quickly about what sorts of things to look for. And then it's going to learn on its own as users interact with this, as they provide their feedback, what's working, what's not. And it's going to refine this and create other clusters and other recommendations that we can create for users. The other component that we have when it comes to troubleshooting applications and performance is we have a dedicated troubleshooting tab. And what you can also see in here is another insight engine where it's making recommendations. And this is where our AI is also, it's making other interpretations about that data besides just, hey, it's doing a correlation engine. It's actually looking to see if the page has load times have gone up, how have they gone up in the past week or how have they gone up in the past day? And it's looking for a lot of different factors in there in terms of doing a differential. So right now, when we're looking at our application, if you had gone in there, if everything was running fine, we probably wouldn't see any insights in here. It would just say, yeah, everything is running just fine. You don't need to do anything. If we had a lot of problems, it would show us all those different problems. We'd say, okay, you've got 5 web pages that are running slowly, and here are the likely causes of them. So now I can see what the slow web pages are, and I can also provide my feedback back to the Nexthink AI engine. And I can also filter just on that page that it's telling me is slow. And then I could look at the other clustering that we've done around that. So now I could see we're just looking at that one page, and I could see what we're looking at in terms of the frustrated users, the average users, the good users. That's an example of using the clustering to identify it. So by clustering the users around what we would consider a frustrated experience, we were able to identify that this one page is causing much more higher page load times than everything else. And if you do the comparison just looking at that data, you could see that it bears with us, that the dispatch shipment is taking twice as long to load as everything else. Now, if this was in error, let's say I said, nope, that's the way it's supposed to be, and I voted this down, Nexthink AI is going to start to learn, oh, you know what? Maybe the dispatch shipment is supposed to take 6 seconds to load. It's got a lot more fields on the page. It'll start to learn that information over time as we can tell it, nope, that's normal behavior. But it doesn't know that in the beginning. It's starting to learn that, but it's actually reporting it accurately. I don't expect the page load times to be that high, especially not when the network time is so much higher. It's almost 4.5 seconds due to the network. So the Insight is actually making the correct evaluation right now and telling me that the reason that these pages are so slow is due to network conditions, which tells me we might have a more widespread issue if these people were on shared networks. So I can leverage our clustering in other ways where we could break it down by things like geographic location. In this case, we're looking at the different countries in here, but I can also break it down by subregions in there. And we can also break it down by different location types. So that's another clustering that we can do. But these can be based off of other things as well. We can break it into, like I've mentioned, about certain traits, but also about departments and things like that as another way of leveraging this information that we have to be able to make decisions and provide insights about how it's performed. But you can see we can group it together based off of any variety of conditions. And this is also telling our AI to do more as we proceed through it. And what we're doing in here, and this concept is based around the idea that the data exists. And previously, a human being would have had to go in there and analyze that data to come up with those conclusions. And they would probably, if given enough time, would draw similar conclusions to our AI, but we don't have infinite time. We want the AI to draw these conclusions. We want them to tell us problems that we didn't know. Because it might be easy enough to know, hey, you have an SAP problem, let's go in and troubleshoot it. And that's been Nexthink's historic value. We're giving you enough information to get you very, very close to it, but you may have to get that last couple inches or so just to make sure that you got into what you wanted in here. AI can really do that fine detail analysis of that data to help you come up with those questions, come up with those insights. And the other area where we've been using AI extensively is in our diagnostics. And that's really where the main part of what our customers have been looking for is to really do a diagnostic analysis across a lot of different types of conditions. And in this case, you could see my diagnostics can go across things like execution crashes. So why does an application keep crashing? Or system crashes. Why do my devices keep crashing? Why am I getting blue screens? Or we might want to look at why does it take so long to log in? Or why is my Wi-Fi connection poor? So we can do troubleshooting and diagnostics on a variety of conditions. But as we look at execution crashes, we're making recommendations to people who are using Nexthink about what issues are happening and what are the likely causes of it. So when we think about why an execution might, or an executable might crash, an application might crash, there can be a variety of features, of reasons. It could be because there are things going on in that device and it's competing for resources. It could be that you have a version that's, that's pretty buggy and it's got a lot of problems. It could be due to something incompatibility with the operating system. Maybe it's got something to do with the configuration setting. And this is what we want to try to bring to you so that you don't have to do that full diagnosis yourself. So let's say I wanted to drill into this right now. Now, I know at a glance for many of them, Nexthink is making a recommendation and saying we have found a better version of that executable that you should be using in your environment. So let's say I wanted to drill into one of them here. And you'll notice that I have, when I'm looking at it, I have the raw data that a person can go through and analyze and determine, yep, these are, we're starting to see a spike in the number of crashes in this application. But where our insights are really going to come into play is to analyze that data. So again, when you think about what's important about AI, having a really good foundation of data is what makes that AI more effective. So our AI is not just looking at one customer's data or a small set, but it's looking at the way that we've collected the data for all of our customers. And it can then start to present out comparisons and saying, well, compared to what you have versus everybody else, you have a lot more crashes of this executable. So that's that first trigger that something is wrong, that is out of line. So that our AI can take that into account when making recommendations. You have a lot more problems than everybody else. And then it's going to start to look at, well, what are other people doing that is working better for you? You wouldn't even have the data to be able to go and look at that, but that's where our AI comes into play. It's able to look at all of that data across all of Nexthink customers and make decisions based off of it. So for instance, one thing that might come to mind is, what version are they using? And so I could see in here, what percentage of my devices have crashes? So on this version, this 67.15.103.0, I can see 69% of my devices are crashing. And it's actually 71% in other companies. So this is a pretty unstable executable. So now it's telling me, hey, your problem, at least with that executable, is pretty poor. But remember, we look back up here and we saw most companies are not having the same problems that I'm having. So maybe there's something else that's happening right now. And that's because there are, in fact, more stable versions that are out there that are crashing far less than the one that we're looking at. So that first indicator right now, that insight is there is, in fact, a more stable version that's available that I can then drill into and install on those devices instead. And it's also telling us what the expected benefit of that would be. So if we want to reduce those crashes and reduce them by a factor of 96%, it might make sense to uninstall the older version or just to upgrade to this newer version that we have in place. But we're looking at other factors too that might be at play. So for instance, maybe we've also noticed that the device model might not be compatible with it. Now that might not be the case in all certain circumstances. We're saying it might be relevant in here, that we're seeing that most of the crashes seem to occur on this device model, but that could be a bit of a coincidence. We're not 100% sure, but it's making a recommendation that it's something that we should look into. And again, if that was based off of the operating system or based off of other conditions, we can present those as well. So we're looking at those different types of factors and we're leveraging our clustering to do this. And we can also look at things like exception codes and also look at that data to help us compute what might be the underlying factors that are causing these types of problems in here. But as I'd mentioned before, the real power of this is the fact that it comes from a very strong history and a very strong body of data that Nexthink is using to feed this engine to be able to create these types of recommendations as part of our engine. So it's part of analyzing why certain applications might be misbehaving, also why they might be crashing, why they might be running slowly, and what the experience is for users, and then to be able to leverage that information to be able to improve the overall experience by looking at these across a lot of different areas. So thank you for your time today. Hopefully that was helpful for everybody. I really appreciated the opportunity to present in front of you, and thanks again.
Well, great. Thank you. I don't know. Did you, Matt? Did you want to add anything on that? Were you going to come in and add anything, or no? Am I?
No,
going straight to the Q&A. I hope.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Because well, I have to ask David. How does AI know what a poor team's call is?
And a lot of that has to do, and I look at our diagnostics area, for instance, one of the things that we've had as part of this is we have used our expertise to understand what a poor call is. We can look at certain factors in there about whether there was any kind of networking problems in there or jitter. And so that might be an indicator of that problem with it. So we have the underlying data to tell you what a poor session is. So it's looking at the network performance, it's looking at what the user feedback is to be able to come up with that. But it really does begin on a foundation of good data.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to. It seems once you've got the model kind of working, it just seems like it's just naturally going to keep falling into place with more and more inputs to the point where it just, there's kind of no end to the improvement curve, which is incredibly exciting across the board with AI, and it's neat to see this kind of an implementation. Matt, we have a question around. Well, can Nexthink Assist tell me why my organization's DEX score is low?
Yeah, it's actually something that we're currently working on. A lot of what you saw today was kind of the initial piece for where Nexthink Assist is right now, and where customers are currently using it, right? Identifying the information, bringing it straight to you right off the cuff, and then being able to create those campaigns and a lot of the different content pieces. Where we are heading upcoming here and what the team is diligently working on is exactly what you were kind of just alluding to. How do you leverage a lot of the different insights pieces that are currently available in the other pieces of the product and then push it into the actual generative AI Nexthink Assist virtual assistant as well. So that is definitely on the horizon and something that we're looking at so that you can be able to quickly say, hey, I'm noticing that this pocket of employees is having a poor experience. What's going on there? Why? And how do I fix it? All within one simple query or question to Nexthink Assist.
Yeah, so I'm curious about the large language model underneath here. So what is that you're using?
It's actually multifaceted. We've been working our teams with Anthropic Claude, OpenAI, GPT, and then we're actually doing other exploration as well. So we're trying to find the best pieces of each one, bring them together, and then work towards, like you just said, that continued iteration and improvement process so that we can provide our customers with instant answers that are going to take them in the right direction to help optimize their digital employee experience across the board.
Yeah, David, I have a question I think is up your alley around objects generated. Can we save the objects generated by Nexthink AI?
We can. And what that allows you to do, what we're creating right here are things like investigations. So let's say I wanted to have, in this case, a list of all Outlook crashes. I'm going to have the option to save that. And then I'll be able to use those in the future, because what I can do is this is going to create an investigation, which is a saved query. So now if in the future, I know that the AI has given me what I wanted and I don't want to have to go back into it. I want it to now on a continuous basis report on this. I now have the option to go and save this as my Outlook crashes, and it will then be available for me in the future. So I don't have to continue to ask AI, although I can. Maybe their responses might change in the way that it presents me that data. But now I can save those objects that's created.
All right. So I have a bunch of questions, and honestly, we find that these programs are often a kind of a gateway drug for you to go and learn more about something as sophisticated as Nexthink, and we would encourage you, because in the end, there's so much information that you can take advantage of looking at on the Nexthink website, but there's really no substitute for understanding your unique situation, and everybody's situation is unique. You have things already in place, you have systems and processes and a culture. So we would encourage you to reach out and start engaging with Nexthink, and certainly go to the Nexthink website. But Matt, I'm curious about that engagement. How does it work? what are people what can they expect after they reach out and make a call to Nexthink to start talking about their particular situation?
Yeah, you can expect an answer quickly, that's for sure. And essentially, we'll kind of get a real feel for, what does your environment look like? Let's ask a couple questions as to some of the different things that you're trying to solve. Or perhaps, it's getting into that proof of concept process where we're taking a look across your entire environment, seeing and potentially uncovering things that maybe you hadn't even seen before in the past. And jumping on the phone really with somebody who's as skilled as David and can really kind of showcase, hey, here's a lot of different opportunities that you have in front of you, and really let's personalize that experience for you and that one-to-one interaction over the course of a series of sessions in order to make sure that, you have everything that you need in order to be able to feel good about making a DEX investment for your organization.
And is that what you're finding in terms of how you engage? Or are you finding people who have something already in place that just isn't quite there? Or are you finding people that don't really have much of anything and are really looking for a new type of solution?
It's been a little bit of both. I actually will let David talk a little bit more to this since he's on the front line every single day.
Yeah, and I've been working with ITSM solutions for a long time as well, and I've been hearing people talking about improving the user experience for a long time, and that has usually meant making a better way of submitting a ticket and more about shifting left. And what people are now saying is, well, we want to improve the employee experience so that instead of shifting left and putting that burden on the employee, we want to take that burden off them completely. But that does involve using AI. That involves using more sophisticated data analytics. And now people are looking to use DEX in ways that they hadn't before.
Yeah. So Matt, what kind of advice would you offer to somebody who is thinking about reaching out and making that call? I mean, should there be things that they're preparing for? Should they be things that they're kind of gathering up so that as they have that discovery call, they can make the relevant information available around any questions that you might have?
Yeah, I think twofold, right? Having some conversations across the aisle. If you're in end user computing, maybe it's some conversations with some of the other IT teams across your organization and seeing what they've got to say. Ultimately, Nexthink is providing visibility like we were showcasing kind of in that initial presentation piece. Where you're getting insights and visibility and holistic end-to-end updates around everything from, network to VDI to devices to applications. And now all of a sudden you're completing that picture. So having kind of full buy-in from the rest of your organization is always, a good start. And then also just cross-referencing with, what some of your larger organization-wide goals are. We have a lot of different kind of both pre-built out of the box content packs to get people up and running, but also do many, many different custom deployments each and every single time. So there's opportunity for you to take a look at, hey, my number one thing is cost savings. And perhaps there's a few different kind of main initiatives that we can put into place with Nexthink in order to help you get there.
On the site, there's a lot of information, including a resources tab that has just a whole host of examples and videos and case studies and so forth. David, can you talk a little bit about the types of organizations that you're seeing? I mean, you have some of the largest companies on the planet as current customers, but I'm sure there's other folks as well that are getting into more of a DEX posture. Can you talk a little bit about who you're working with and where in the organization you're working?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we really do work across multiple verticals right now. And while some have gravitated more to DEX than others, I think people that are looking to manage risk have generally tried to be the leaders on that. So we see a lot of consulting agencies, we see a lot of insurance companies. They tend to be the ones that have moved first towards this because they're used to processing a lot of data. They understand the value of it. And so it kind of fits naturally in their wheelhouse. But at this point, we're really seeing that going across a lot of different industries and across a lot of different sizes. And also the type of people within a company we're seeing that changing as well, that profile, where it started with IT organizations that want to, like I mentioned earlier, see, diagnose, and fix IT issues and reduce tickets. That's always going to be something that people want to do as part of improving the experience. But now we're seeing dedicated employee experience organizations. We're seeing people with that in their title, which means they're thinking about it not just from a digital perspective, but overall, and understanding that that experience means productivity. It means lower attrition. It means more job security. So the things that people want out of it. And what we think of that affects experience is a variety of different factors. And now people want to look at that and not just, hey, run this script to fix a problem, but I want to look more holistically about what's impacting experiences. And that's probably the bigger change that we're seeing in it, is going beyond just IT.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've seen with Nexthink, is that you've kind of been out on the forefront of this revolution, and now with AI coming on board, it's an exciting time, and I'm curious about where you both see it going. So we are obviously covering a wide variety of enterprise technology, but we can't help but think about the broader impact here of AI. Certainly at Solutions Review, we think about how it's going to impact us, and what we should be talking about and sharing. And I'm curious what you are starting to think about as well. I mean, in your product role, in your kind of customer roles. This is going to be, I think, an incredible revolution of technology, and I'd welcome to hear what your thoughts are on where we're going. Not 10 years from now, but maybe in the next couple.
Yeah, David, you want to start, and then I'll jump in afterwards?
Yeah, sure. And what I've seen, like when AI, a big part of it is getting traction. And what you'll notice sometimes is just that little bit of traction, then it can start to pick up in there. And we've already seen in just the year or so that we've been using Nexthink Assist, and we've had our recommendations engine, they're getting more refined. They're making better recommendations after it. And an example I always like to use, like back in, I think it might have been the 90s, when the greatest chess player in the world, Garry Kasparov, was playing against IBM, he was drawing it, so they were tying pretty regularly. And within 5 years, that chess engine was better than he could possibly have ever dreamed. It's just once it starts to learn, because it was learning from the games it was tying with him. And that's how AI is. It learns very, very quickly. It learns from the best, and then it just can process things in a way that humans can't. And that's really where it takes it to that next level. So that's where I see it going. We've gotten our traction, and I think we're going to start to see some real acceleration.
Yeah, and I think it plays into kind of what we were talking about off the bat, right? We're somewhere, I think, now in between that proactive and preventative stage. There are things that we're leveraging right now inside of Nexthink that are aiding our customers to get to preventative in terms of specific use cases, right? I mentioned some of the VPN disconnecting and what can you do from a workflow standpoint. But that's kind of my next anticipation, is that we get even more closer towards kind of that preventative measure, and then unlocking time for the IT teams who have been, working so hands-on from a proactive standpoint to think about what's the next kind of larger scale strategic initiative, right? We talked today about operating system migrations and software license reclamation and intelligent hardware refreshes and that kind of stuff. But there's always more ways to more efficiently run a business and drive better digital employee experience. And, that's where I kind of see a lot of the different opportunities for our customers who are in that every single day and able to rely more and more on Nexthink to be able to do some of the more, repetitive tasks that pop up.
Yeah, so let's put one last word, bottom line for everybody to kind of take away from this. What is the kind of singular reason that you would provide to somebody watching this show as to why they should employ a Nexthink solution?
David, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, employee experience is at the center of every organization. No organization is going to be successful without that experience. And it's getting harder and harder to, like I mentioned earlier, throw bodies at that problem. And even when you have a lot of rich data, we still need something that's going to process all of that data. And just to kind of add to that last question, those recommendations that Nexthink is making, and I would imagine within the next couple of years, almost everything that's going to be done is going to be based off of AI recommendations. So all those different types of things that you're looking for, rather than having to ask all these different systems, AI should be able to tell you, these are where all the problems are. So I think it's trying to manage a problem that's becoming unmanageable because of how much data, how much processing is going in through there. So we need to be able to point the AI, we need to point technology to be able to address that. And that's where I see that being very important for organizations.
Yeah, and I would just add towards the end of that is all those different kind of preventative measures and things that artificial intelligence inside of Nexthink that's aiding IT teams to help improve digital employee experience for the employees really has impact on the customer-facing touch points as well, right? So many organizations have employees who are interacting with their potential clients or current clients every single day, and providing a better and more optimal digital employee experience for those front-facing teams, especially who are interacting with your customers, goes a long way in terms of creating a better customer experience, and ultimately, an opportunity to drive more business for you.
Yeah, it's a data-driven world, and and AI is coming along at the absolute most optimal time, and it's probably no coincidence. But data has been stacking up. It's been almost overwhelming organizations, and AI is just a natural tool to come and help process that. And when it's employed through smart technologies like what Nexthink is doing, I think you'll see a really happy marriage there. So this was great. Matt, David, thanks very much for the time today. Best of luck as you continue to go down the path here. We'll keep an eye on you at Solutions Review. And you're obviously, as you have been in the past, you're always welcome back to a Solution Spotlight in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Take care. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Well, there you have it, another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Matt and David for that presentation, and Nexthink for being a part of this event, and we appreciate your attendance as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.
If your business would like to be featured in a future event, contact us today.